Monday Night Raw is tonight, 7:30 at Quicken Loans Arena. Let's bring in Wade Barrett, who will be there at WWE Raw. We've been to some WWE shows, and it's been a lot of fun. They've been crazy.
Yeah, I want to go tonight.
Rob, I said, let's bring him in. Rob's just standing there, staring in through the window. Good morning. How are you, my man?
How you doing?
Wade Barrett is here, and you can get tickets at 888-894-9424 or any area discount Drug Mart. If you want to go see WWE Raw tonight, which is always pretty cool. We've been to this thing before, and there's some crazy fans that come out to these events.
Yeah, it gets a little wild. I mean, that's kind of the cool thing about coming to a live show versus watching it on TV is you get to get involved in that atmosphere and the interaction with the performers and stuff like that.
It's actually more fun, I think, that even if you're not a wrestling fan, I think you can have fun at these things.
That's it. I mean, literally, I've brought people along to shows like, family members who've never watched wrestling before, and one of the most entertaining things for them is literally sitting there and watching the audience at times and how crazy some of the fans are, and then they really get involved with it themselves and start the chants themselves and that sort of thing. So that's a huge part of what our audience comes to experience is the actual interaction with the performers and stuff.
You were born and grew up where? In the United Kingdom?
Yeah, in England. I'm from a town called Preston in England, which is near Manchester.
And is that a small town, working class town, or what's that like there?
It's pretty small, working class town north of England. It's like most of England, we're all obsessed with the soccer, so the World Cup's a big deal for us right now. But, I mean, I grew up there and discovered WWE when I was about 9 or 10 years old. Became a huge fan of guys like Hulk Hogan and The Ultimate Warrior, and then carried on watching all the way through to Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock and guys like that. And then eventually I got to like 19 or 20 years old, and I thought I really wanted to give it a shot. And I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 250 pounds. I'm 6'6", so I had certain attributes that were gonna hold me in good stead for a career in wrestling. And fortunately, once I started wrestling, things went pretty well, and WWE picked me up and brought me over to the States.
How did you watch a WWE? Was it on TV over there? They had a deal where the WWE was broadcast on television in England?
Yeah, that's it. We got Sky TV out there, and that kind of started in the late 80s, early 90s, which was our big satellite channel when that first kind of came around, and they picked up the American wrestling at WWE, so they started broadcasting out. Prior to that, we had British wrestling, which is pretty big out there, but WWE came along and kind of blew British wrestling out of the water.
What's the difference between the two? Is it just WWE was more produced, just better athletes? Or?
I think it was partly that. I mean, there were some great athletes in the UK, but the WWE guys came along. They just looked better. They were bigger. They had better tans. The production values of
better. Yeah. There's no sun in England. Of course, they have better tans than the WWE.
Stuff like that is huge. I mean, I have to tan all the time. I've got terrible skin for tanning, but if I don't tan, I look awful. And, that's a big part of what we do, if I'm honest with you. And, I think the production values and the entertainment aspect of WWE was just much higher level than the British stuff. So the British stuff just ended up dying out a little.
So you actually have to go. You spend a lot of time. I guess I never really thought about it, that here our wrestlers are like these big hulking guys. But quite frankly, you spend a lot of time on your appearance, primping yourself.
That's it. I mean, if you've never seen WWE before, for the most part, we wear these tiny Speedos in the ring and elbow pads and knee pads, so there's a lot of flesh exposed. And if you've got a very pale complexion like I do, you kind of need to work on that. And tanning's a big part of it, as is hitting the gym and that kind of thing. And, then you've got things like the kind of wardrobe that we put effort into, trying to have a unique kind of trunks or entrance. I wear a cape. I'm the one guy who wears a cape on the show, so I've got a kind of unique.
Who comes up with that? Do you come up with that, or do they say, look, we want to do something different, we'll throw a couple of ideas out? Is it all you, or do they come to you with it?
I'd say 90% of it is the wrestler himself coming up with it. We have like seamstresses in WWE too, who kind of put their 2 cents in and give you a few ideas. But yeah, 90% of it is really the wrestler coming up with it himself and kind of thinking what character he wants to portray and how he thinks he could best contribute to the show, I suppose. So some guys want to be the good guy, some guys want to be the bad guy, some guys want to be the straight-laced guy, somebody else wants to be the crazy lunatic guy, and whatever's inside your personality, you kind of bring that out, and that comes out in the wardrobe and everything else in the character.
So you got into wrestling when you were about 8 or 9. You saw it and you thought this is interesting. What did your parents do when you were growing up? What did they do for a living?
Well, my father was an accountant. My mother was a social worker. So they were both two very conservative, straight-laced people. And I think they saw me watching the wrestling and probably thought it was just a phase I was going through. But then after a couple of years, I think they perhaps got a little worried that I was getting a little too obsessed with it. But, my parents were kind of like, you let him watch it, whatever. And then slowly but surely, I'd look over at my dad, and he'd be sat there on the couch reading the paper, and I'd notice his eyes would be peeping over the top of it, watching the TV, and slowly but surely, he became a fan himself, and I'd come home sometimes, and he was already sat there watching it before I got there, and he quickly changed the channel as I walked in. He was like, come on, Dad, I caught you now. We can sit here and watch it together, and in the end, he became a fan too.
But when you tell your parents at the age of, I think 2021, you decide, I want to become a professional wrestler. I think maybe I'm incorrect about this, but I think that's when it was. What do they say, or did you ever have that conversation with them right off the bat?
Yeah, I had that conversation with them. I think they didn't take it too seriously at the time. Again, I think they thought it was something that I was just going to try and then come back to kind of real life after that. But I went away to university. I did all the kind of education stuff. I had a regular career at that point. So I kind of had a backup plan in place if the wrestling didn't work out. So it wasn't like I put all of my eggs in one basket. So I had this backup plan. Wrestling was something I did on the side. It started going well. It got better and better, and eventually I got signed by WWE. So it was almost I wouldn't say a foolproof plan, but I did have that backup plan for me that if the wrestling didn't work out, I did have this career.
What did you go to school for? To university, as they say over there?
Well, I went to university. I went to the University of Liverpool, and I got a degree in marine biology, of all things. So I left university and started.
What were you going to do with that? You're going to go out in the middle of an ocean and do what? I mean, what was your plan? What was your plan?
Honestly,
wrestle sharks. Yeah, that was his plan.
Probably only 1% of marine biologists actually end up going out and working in the field. The majority end up working in labs somewhere, and that's what I ended up doing when I graduated. I worked in a medical laboratory. I was working on kits that diagnose different types of diabetes. It was all pretty boring, to be honest with you, and honestly, the wrestling was a great release for me, and I was quite thankful in the end when I got the opportunity to kind of wrestle full-time and move over to the States and make a real career of it.
Wade Barrett is here from WWE. Raw is at Quicken Loans Arena tonight, 888-894-9424 for tickets. So you started when did you actually start training to become a wrestler? Was it around 2021 or?
Yeah, I started training to be a wrestler when I was 23. So I was actually a real skinny beanpole. I'm 6'6", but at the time that I decided I wanted to be a wrestler, I was about 160, 165 pounds. So real skin and bone kind of guy, very tall. I'd always been very athletic. I played a lot of soccer and stuff like that, but I was very skinny. So once I decided I wanted to be a wrestler, I knew I needed to put some weight on. So I started eating like crazy and hitting the gym, working out. So I spent a couple of years just getting my physique in better order before I went to a wrestling school. And
what did people what was the reaction people would give you as a 22, 23-year-old guy? And you tell them that you are training to become a professional wrestler. I mean, people must have looked like you were out of your mind.
100%. I mean, I had some very close friends who thought it was the most ridiculous thing they'd ever heard, and there was no chance I'd ever make it. And, for every one person who said, you know what, I actually believe in you, I've got 500 people who said, there's no way this is ever going to work out. No chance. It's just so ridiculous for a kid from England to dream of being this WWE star on TV. So, I think it was kind of a long shot, really, and I always knew it was a long shot, but from day one, I believed in myself. I had a vision that I was going to make it to WWE, and I was going to do whatever I could to get there. And, there's a ton of people who would want to do that and live that life, but I knew I was going to do everything in my power to make it happen.
Now, at this time, are you also doing bare-knuckle fights, or is this just part of the Wade Barrett legend?
Yeah, this is something I did when I was younger. I was kind of 22, 23 years old after university. It was something that I got involved in for a little while, and it went pretty well for me. I made some good money out of it, but it was a pretty rough lifestyle.
What's the difference between a bare knuckle fight and just like UFC MMA style stuff, or is it exactly the same?
No, it's usually it's unsanctioned for a start. It's illegal. You don't wear gloves is another part of it.
And where do you do it? Like in a bar or in someone's backyard? Where the hell are you doing this?
Kind of places where the public eye isn't going to really see it, and the authorities aren't going to kind of get involved and that sort of thing. So yeah, it was very very much underground.
This sounds crazy to me because I spend my whole life trying to avoid fights. This guy actually would seek them out. So how in the world would you get involved in something like that? Someone says, hey, you should get into bare knuckle fighting, or how does this even come about?
I was seen fighting somewhere, and I really got to be careful how much detail I go into here, but I was...
He's still wanted in England, actually.
Somebody saw me fighting somewhere and suggested that I could make some money with him by getting involved in organized bare knuckle fights.
So you're basically just in a street brawl or a bar fight or something,
comment.
And someone sees this and they go, geez, this guy can kick some ass. Come with me and you can actually make some money instead of just, getting arrested or whatever. And so then you start out and the first time that you show up at one of these things, you fight in the first one, or do you go and you watch for a while and check it out first?
No, I mean, I fought on my first one. It's not something I really wanted to spend too much time around without being paid for it. It's not a kind of environment I wanted to be around I wanted to be there as little time as possible, basically. So, I mean, the first time they set up a fight, I turned up, had the fight, and left there pretty quickly afterwards.
This is amazing to me. Absolutely incredible. How many fights were you in? Dozens, hundreds, 10, 5?
I think in total I probably had 10 or 11.
Now, did they pay? Now, I guess people are betting on this. Of course, this is the big draw of this thing. So they're paying. How do they determine how much money you make to do this?
I always had a set purse.
Okay,
kind of agreed before.
And what kind of dough are we talking about?
I'd say I'm earning a lot more now with WWE. Let's put it that way. So
of course.
There's not much of a draw for me to go back.
But I mean, are you making? Is it hundreds, thousands? Is it?
I'd say it's in the hundreds.
It's a hundreds. Yeah. But still, if you get your bell rung, what happens? I mean, you can't call an ambulance right there because you're doing something illegal. What do they do?
I mean, you can still call an ambulance. I think the setup would be, everyone would kind of disappear. If you did need an ambulance, you could call one out. This guy's been attacked or beaten up or whatever. I mean, it's not like you would call them into.
Did you see anything? Anyone get seriously injured during?
No, I didn't. It was kind of. It's difficult to describe. I mean, it's a dark and sinister kind of world, but there is a certain gentleman code in a sense that I didn't see anything terrible there. I mean, it's two guys getting in a ring to fight. Guys are betting on it, and at the end of the day, that's where it ended.
Would people then leave you alone if they saw you around town in bars and stuff? Did you get a reputation for being a real bad son of a bitch?
Not really. I wasn't. That wasn't something I really kind of embellished at all. I kind of did what I needed to do in whatever part of the country I needed to do it. Then I disappeared and went back to my kind of regular life.
Wade Barrett from WWE is here. Monday Night Raw in town at Quicken Loans Arena, 888-894-9424 to purchase tickets. You can, of course, call us, 1-866-YO-ROVER. That's 1-866-967-6837. I have to ask you one last question about this, and then we'll move on from the bare knuckle. There's a story, and again, I don't know if this is legend. He wins a bunch of money, Dieter, in one of these bare knuckle fights. Now, someone knows that he has this money on him, and he's walking back to his car or whatever, and they decide, we're going to attack this guy and steal his money. Yeah, with a knife, right? Is this true story?
Yeah, 100% true. I've got the scar on my back to prove it.
So they come up to you, they say, give me the money, or do they attack you before they even say anything?
I was stabbed in the back before they had the chance to speak to me.
So you're just walking, minding your own business, going back to your car. Are you alone, or are you with another couple of dudes?
I'm on my own at this point.
Okay. You have a bunch of cash on you. They come up, they stab you in the back. What do you do?
At this point, I mean, this is one guy who's come up to me and stabbed me in the back. At this point, I've felt something in my back. I end up turning around fighting with him. I fortunately got the better of him and got away with the money.
Now, doesn't it strike you as crazy that a guy, he knew that you had the money, right?
Yeah.
Okay. He knows how you won said money, right?
Well, I think his idea was he was going to attack me beforehand, get the upper hand, leave with the money. But
this guy just won money from beating someone's ass. What would possess someone to go, I'm going to go try and steal that money from the guy? Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. Well, it didn't work out for him.
Thankfully.
So you're in England. You are training to be a wrestler. How do you get to the United States and get to the WWE?
Well, WWE goes on tours of Europe twice a year, and on one of the tours, this was in early 2007, they kind of brought up a list of who they saw as top potential independent wrestlers in the UK who could come over to the US and potentially wrestle for WWE. So they put this list together and they brought about 10 or 15 of us along to a WWE show. And before they open the doors, they've got all the rings set up in the arena. They got a bunch of us in there and, okay, you and you have a match now. Let's see you wrestle you, you wrestle you. And we did this for 2 days in a row. And at the end of that, they picked out about 6 or 7 of us and said, okay, you guys, we want to bring you over to the States. Here's what we can offer you. We want you to continue training over there. You're not the finished article, but we have kind of a little league, or what would you call it? You call it kind of the B League kind of thing, a small wrestling federation that was in Tampa, Florida at the time. We want to fly you over there, have you live out there and continue your progression and hopefully get to the point where we can debut you on WWE.
So this is great for you. But I'm guessing you're not making any money at the time. I mean,
that's it. It's a loss leader almost. You know, it's an opportunity. So they're paying you to continue your training, development, and hopefully you'll get to the point where, okay, I'm good enough now to get onto WWE TV.
How long were you in that before you actually make it into, you know, what we see on television now and whatnot?
Well, it always varies from person to person. I've known people be in that system for 5 or 6 years. Me personally, I was in that system for just over 2 years. And I'd say I actually got an injury at one point, so I had about 6 months out with an arm injury. So, you know, in total, really, like I say, about 2 years that I was in that system before I debuted.
What'd you learn in that you didn't know back when you were in England?
Well, a lot of the stuff I was doing in England wasn't televised, so there's a lot of work with cameras and lighting, and I suppose in general, just being in the ring, you get to wrestle better people every day than I was doing on the independent scene in the UK, so that helps you improve, you become more polished, you become better on the microphone, you work on your physique. They have physique trainers in the developmental system, you develop a character. You know, every aspect of what we do.
Do you have any characters that you came up with that they go, that's not going to work, or things that just you thought were great and they just fizzled out?
Yeah, I think probably the worst one I ever came up with when I first came to the States, I was trying to think to myself, what's a stereotypical British person from an American perspective? And obviously the most common stereotype of the Brit is that we're all snooty, upper class, snobs kind of thing. But there was a guy, William Regal, who had been in WWE for a long time. He was already doing that kind of character, so I wanted to stay away from that. So I decided I was going to be kind of like Liam and Noel Gallagher, Oasis. So I was going to do something along those lines. So I did 2 or 3 shows that fortunately there's no footage of, where I came down dressed in this bucket hat and swaggering down to the ring like one of Oasis.
You need a brother that you could just fight with all the time, right? And
so yeah, that was pretty
bad. Wade Barrett is here. WWE Monday Night Raw is tonight at Quicken Loans Arena. 6'7", 250 is what you. There's 6'6" or 6'7"?
6'7" in my boots.
6'7"
6'6"
in your boots. So what do you do training-wise? How much time are you spending training? Is it just nonstop?
Well, you got to remember, I'm wrestling probably 4 or 5 nights a week on average, and so in terms of kind of cardio and things like that, I'm burning a massive amount of calories just from being in the ring every night and wrestling. But then on top of that, I need to do some kind of like bodybuilding, athletic stuff in the gym. So I try and hit the gym 4 or 5 times a week too, for maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours a day. So, yeah, there's a lot of calories getting burned. I have to have a very high calorie diet just to make up for the amount of calories that I'm losing from working out and being in the ring.
Now, are you able, because you're doing all these different shows and whatnot, you're traveling all over the place, are you able to have a girlfriend? Are you single, or what's the story?
Yeah, I'm kind of seeing a girl at the moment. It's very difficult when you're on the road all the time. I'm very rarely actually at my house. I probably spend 70 nights a year at my own place, so it's pretty difficult. But yeah, I'm seeing a girl at the moment. It's fairly embryonic at the moment. It's not been
so it's brand new.
Well, it's been going 3 or 4 months, but
yeah,
we've not spent that much time together in that 3 or 4 months. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's difficult because when are you ever able to be at home and spend time with them?
Exactly, that's the hard part. I mean, some
plus
guys,
you have women throwing themselves at you. I'm sure.
I wish.
Right?
I wish it was like
that.
Oh,
please. 6'6", 250 on television. Women are coming out of the woodwork for you. I would think. There was a guy. I don't know who he is, but I saw this on TMZ.com. His name is Pat Patterson. Is his name? Do you know who this is?
I know Pat. Yeah.
Pat Patterson, I guess WWE, they have, first of all, the success of WWE is fascinating to me, and I think just about everyone else. They have their own, I know that, do they have their own network now? Or I know they just launched something, which is like their own.
Yeah, that's the WWE network. It's $10 a month, and it's got all the old kind of pay-per-view footage from the last 30-plus years. On there, you get WrestleMania, SummerSlam, all that stuff.
But they must have some original programming on there, too. I get like some almost reality show, because I saw a clip. It was from something called Legends House or something, whatever that is on this WWE network. And this Pat Patterson guy, he's around a bunch of dudes who are former wrestlers and stuff. They're all like 60 now. And this guy comes out. This just happened a couple days ago. He comes out and he tells the whole group, he goes, oh, by the way, you've known me for 50 years. I'm gay.
Oh.
And he came out of the closet like that. Has this been talked about by, I don't know who this Pat Patterson guy is, but I guess he's an executive there. He's very well known.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Pat's been around the business for years and years. He's had a huge career. He was a top wrestler in his days, also a top producer in WWE, and yeah, he came out the closet. I mean, it's literally not an issue. I was actually aware already that he was gay. I think.
So did most people kind of know that this guy was gay?
I think so. He'd never actually, as far as I'm aware, he'd never actually come out with it publicly before, but I think it was kind of commonly known.
This is like when Ricky Martin came out of the closet, or
right.
George Michael. We were like, oh, yeah, wow, he was gay. Who would have guessed? So, do you think that there could be? I'm sure there is. I don't know, but if there's a gay wrestler, would this be accepted or embraced in the locker room?
It's funny you mention it. Actually, about a year ago, a guy, Darren Young, who's a wrestler, he came out of the closet. He's a wrestler in WWE. He's actually out injured at the moment, but he came out, and TMZ made a big production of it. But it was literally just another day. I mean, nobody in the WWE batted an eyelid. It was just a regular thing as far as we're concerned.
See, that almost goes against what the stereotype that you think of these wrestler guys who are just, big, huge meathead, as macho as can be, that you're telling me it wasn't that big of a deal. It
was literally nothing. I mean, it's that was the kind of the opposite of the Pat Patterson situation, where I think everyone kind of knew about Pat. With Darren Young, nobody knew at all. And as far as we were aware, he'd always talked about having girlfriends and stuff like that in the past. So that was kind of a little more surprising when he came out. But I'd say instantly, I've never heard a negative thing about it in the locker room. Literally nobody cared. It was literally that insignificant to people that it was okay, cool, whatever, and then back to normal, business as usual.
So what you're telling me is you were just talking about this girlfriend that you have 3 or 4 months. Maybe you could come out of the closet.
Maybe. Who knows what the big announcement is next? Get TMZ on the
phone. Wade Barrett will be at WWE Monday Night Raw tonight at 7:30. It's at Quicken Loans Arena. You can call this number for tickets, 888-894-9424. You can also get tickets at any area discount drug mart. Wade, I appreciate you coming in. and enjoy your short period of time that you'll probably be in town while you're here. And I appreciate you coming in, my man.
Cool.
And I'm going to take a quick break. Go see Wade Barrett and Monday Night Raw tonight at Quicken Loans Arena. We'll be right back on Rovers Morning Glory. Hang on.
Rovers Morning Glory.